Welcome, everyone. This is the February hybrid meeting of the Climate Change, Energy, and Environment Commission. The meeting is being recorded. Public comment is welcome at the beginning of the meeting, but after that, if you're not a commissioner, a couple of exceptions I'm looking at right here that I will explain. You wouldn't be able to speak until later, although you can text. You're up. So we'll go around the room and introduce ourselves, but I wanted to start by introducing two people who I am going to let talk at this meeting, even though they are officially being appointed tomorrow. So we're going to jump the gun a tiny bit. And one is Helen Haas, who's sitting here. Helen is our student representative. That's an open position that we haven't. Helen approached us. I'll let you introduce yourself and talk about it. But I just want to say, so student rep is non-voting and it doesn't count as one of our 15. It doesn't count as a quorum, but it's a great way to have a liaison with. So with students, with young people, get feedback from them. Anyone?
Yeah. So I'm Helen. I'm a junior at Washington Liberty High School. Yeah, I've been really invested in it for a while. I just thought it was a really interesting opportunity to kind of see how the local government works and how it's addressing. So,
Right.
excited to be here.
And you're involved with Eco Action and
I do.
And I will come back to Tanner, but we have an APS representative. So, and also being appointed tomorrow is Liliana Diaz.
Very nice meeting. I'm sorry.
So, so go ahead, introduce yourself. We're excited to you as well.
So I am a long-term resident of Arlington, even though I am not from the United States originally. I'm from Colombia, but I came to Arlington about 25 years ago. I came for love, but I stay for the climate. I have a background in international economics, public policy, and consulting. I've been a consultant for 15 years doing strategic advisory, focus on the energy and climate nexus. I'm taking a sabbatical year from work, and I am decided to give back to my community and to do all the things that I cannot do regularly because I'm busy. And so I'm teaching, I am doing this work that I'm very passionate about. As a consultant, I get to advise clients on a myriad of issues, particularly on the phase of thinking, strategizing, and coming up with a plan, but I rarely see things being implemented. And this is my first time to see a government in action. I've worked for different governments. I had the honor to work for the DOE. Mapping commercialization paths for emerging clean technology. So thinking big picture technologies, climate, how to reduce emissions. And I'm very excited to have an opportunity to give back and work with you guys. And sorry, I spoke too much.
Welcome. So I know Elizabeth and Trevor both have work commitments tonight. I can't be here, but let's go around the table and introduce ourselves, then we'll go around that side of the room. I'm Cindy Lewin. I'm the chair of C2E2.
Joe McIntyre, Commissioner.
Melissa Ben, Commissioner. Lisa Marcellus, Commissioner.
Mark and Kevin, just say your names and then your commissioners.
Mark Green, whatever.
There's a seat. There's a couple seats on
Oh, the
this.
seats over there.
Joe, over to you.
Okay, Commissioner.
Robson. Snellenboss, Commissioner.
Jonathan.
We'll introduce Steve in just a second. He's our first speaker. Go to Jana.
So there's Steve Burr from the air team and then Jenna Peabody.
And we'll go to
Yeah, resident.
welcome.
Katie Thompson, longtime Arlingtonian.
Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Tanner Prime, Energy Manager at Arlington Public Schools and the Stormwater Program Manager. Arlington resident.
Great. And
And online.
Jason and Jen.
Hey everyone, Jason Papacosma, Acting Bureau Chief, Office of Sustainability and Environmental Management. Sorry I couldn't be there with you in 3D tonight.
Jennifer.
Hi there, Jennifer Fioretti, Assistant County Manager for Climate Policy. I too send my regrets. I have a childcare conflict, so I'm home today listening.
Oh, that is absolutely fine. I'm glad to see you. Christina? Could you introduce yourself? Yeah.
Hi, Christina Perez. I'm just a resident of Arlington County who was interested and wanted to join this call.
Welcome. A lot of residents today, and don't say just. All right, John. John Blue, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, John Bloom, representing and kind of watching on behalf of the Sierra Club.
And we have another joining. If you could introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Alex Rowe, Commissioner.
Yeah. So with that, yes, welcome to everyone. We're glad to have a lot of residents watching. So the first thing on our agenda is, we work closely with the AIR team that Jason is from, Jana is from, Steve is from. We hear your names, but we don't always get to know you. So Steve is going to be the first one to come. But Steve is going to be the first one to come and tell us a little bit about what you do here. We get a sense, and then hope. Our agenda is always full. I've wanted to do this for a long time. So I won't promise we'll do this every month, but I would like to do it every month until we've gone through all the members of your team. But Steve, thank you for being here and for being the first person to tell us what you do on behalf of the AIR team.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thanks so much for the invitation. I'm excited to be here and share some things that sort of I work on, and then also just a little bit more about the AIR team. And I love the idea of having the AIR team come and sort of share the work that they're doing, and I think that'll be great. And I think
we should say what the AIR team is.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that might be a great starting point. So the AIR team is an acronym. And if I use too many acronyms, please stop me and I'll use the real words. But it's the Arlington Initiative to Rethink Energy. And so it's the team that's focused on energy and climate implementation for the county, both for county operations as well as community-wide, in support of the community energy plan, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with. And then
so much OSA.
Yes, yep. And so the AIR team is a member, and then our sister team is the stormwater team, and together is the OSAM team, the Office of Sustainability and Environmental Management, which is in DES, the Department of Environmental Services. So that's sort of how we are set up in the county organizational structure. And so it's a small but mighty team. So currently there are 5 members. We have an additional member who is starting at the end of March, who we're very excited about. We'll be focused on project implementation and some of our grant work that we have going on. We currently have 3 federal grants that I'll dive into, and 2 in particular that are really charging ahead. So that's a little bit about the AIR team. So myself, Jenna, there's Drew Stilson, who will be here in March to talk about the greenhouse gas inventory and sort of in the analytic space. Emily Nachbar, who is on energy analytics, and then Paul Roman for the green building and
Wonderful. I forgot to mention, I know that Jason had said that we would hear at this meeting about the greenhouse gas inventory, but he had to have the meetings with the county board members first, and they could not be scheduled. So that's one of the many things. Meeting, and also Jen would have loved to share with us the work plan for the Climate Policy Office, but she has to socialize with the board first, which is happening tomorrow, not today, but tomorrow. So again, hope to see that in March. Anyway.
That is a great plug for that. Yeah, so excited to be there, and then the internal pieces that we're working through on the team. So that's a little bit about the AIR team. I think one document that I hope folks are familiar with is the carbon roadmap. And so that is the implementation document to accompany the CEP. And so that's set up in community energy plan. Thank you it just rolls off the tongue to speak an acronym. So the carbon roadmap is basically the implementation or strategy spreadsheets that we have. And and Jenna, maybe we can like circulate or drop in the chat. But it's on our website. In October we sort of turned the page from strategies for years 1 to 2 to years 3 to 5, and so some of those are ongoing. And so there's additional in there, and so this document really is pretty, sort of the implementation where rubber hits the road, sort of the departments who are responsible, sort of impact metrics for tracking. So a lot of really good stuff in that document, and sort of hoping to report back more through the structure of the curriculum. And then a lot of the work that we do are, is aligned to the carbon roadmap strategies and different things. So just a plug for the carbon roadmap, what it is, sort of how we look at that, and and it's a great document. And we also have for the years 1 to 2, sort of earlier pieces, and then also a report out on sort of the strategies that. So that's just a little bit of level setting on the on sort of some core documents and sort of guiding items for the AIR team and myself. A couple of things in particular that have been keeping me pretty busy of late are the federal grants. And I know that that's sort of a dynamic space with the federal grants now, and so I'm not going to speak to that piece of it. But the county has 2 grants that were awarded around summer, fall time. One is the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant, or the EECBG grant. And so that was about $250,000. And the design that we submitted to the Department of Energy was an e-bike voucher program. And so that's a pretty cool program where we're going to be partnering with EcoAction to help administer the program, and as well as local bike shops, and really trying to look at the trips to reduce vehicle miles traveled to transition from sort of those like smaller local trips. So we did some modeling with on sort of greenhouse gas impact, and then also have a carve out for what we're calling an enhanced voucher, where we're going to do some income qualification and give an additional incentive for Arlingtonians who are at or below 80% area median income, so everyone can participate in the program regardless of income, and partnering with the Department of Human Services, DHS, to help us verify that program. Basically, we're on the application document, we're going to say, are you enrolled in any of the programs for DHS that are at or below that? And then that's the mechanism, so it's not overly burdensome for folks to work through that. So.
With my ignorance, but e-bike, that's like motorized. Like what qualifies as an e-bike?
It's basically a bike with like an electric assist, and so it's so it's like, think like the Capital Bike Share, like if you've ever used the e-bikes there, it's sort of that. Yeah.
It attaches to a regular bike, or
it's a separate bike with that. Yeah.
E-bikes are the future.
I'm all.
That's who they're for. That's who they're for. They're great.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you later.
No, I
was just gonna. So this voucher's gonna allow people to buy their own e-bike?
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. So it's gonna help.
Expensive.
They are, and so and so it'll be I think a $300 point of sale voucher.
$600.
Yep. Okay. And then for the enhanced voucher, it'll be $1,650, which will be the majority of the and we have a website up with that, and we have a form for folks who are interested to receive more information. And so we're going through the administrative pieces with working through an SOW with EcoAction. That's part of an MOU that the county's actually that we partner on. So that's and then from there there'll be another bike shops, EcoAction in the county for the sort of the administrative and reimbursement process. So so it'll be about 250 vouchers total for that, and so we're really excited about that program that's kicking off and working through that. And again, it's like I was a bit of a kind of like you, Jonathan. I was like, just ride a bike, and then I took one on. Well, I was like, e-bikes, what is that? And then I took one on Capital Bike Share, and it really is, a really good way to get around, and it is, and I had to try it to kind of believe it. So so that's one grant in particular that we're working on, and really excited to and aiming for sort of over the next sort of, I would say, 6 months to sort of work through getting that out to the public. And we'll also have a 2-week application period, and so it's not we didn't want to say 9 a.m. on a Monday and then, and so there'll be 2 weeks that we'll have an open period for folks to do that. These programs have been pretty oversubscribed in other jurisdictions. And so we're hoping for and expecting the same, and then working through sort of a random lottery of all the applicants to align with the budget. And then having some processes to, have a bike shop to partner with so folks can see what type of bike works best for them, purchase the bike and then go through the administrative process. So that's an exciting program, and definitely more to come on that. But that's one that we're actively working on. I'll pause there to see if there's any other questions. Or if not, I will jump into the other grant that we have is an EPA government to government grant. And so that is focusing on, there's 3 pillars to that. And so we are working, and that one was specific for environmental justice communities. And so around the Columbia Pike corridor, and we have, and we're endeavoring to do 3 really sort of prongs to this project. The first one is to create a decision support tool to help building owners and managers see what opportunities are available for energy upgrades in their buildings, and layering in human health impacts, environmental impacts, and cost saving. So really sort of that pre-planning for that, hey, you have equipment that may be ending useful life in 5 years, like start planning, start thinking about it, start seeing what those benefits are. And it'll be an open source tool based on the sort of common building types in that area. So that's sort of the first piece of it. The second piece is to have a financing toolkit to help convert those opportunities to different funding mechanisms, incentives of financing, sort of what the landscape is for these upgrades. And the third piece is having a really involved public outreach and engagement process on a variety of planes. One is the residents of this area to understand sort of what they want to see, particularly in multifamily buildings, but also small commercial and also working with building owners, building operators. And so really just trying to have as many engagement touch points as we can to really inform the tool's use, and then sort of making those conversions going forward. So we are in that program. We also have 4 partners that we're working with, 2 community-based organizations. One is the Columbia Pike Partnership to help, and they really have a pulse on what's happening down in the Pike, and then also the business communities and sort of business owners in that space, and also NVAHA, the Northern Virginia Affordable Housing Alliance. And they're helping us sort of connect with communities in that area, multifamily property owners, and so they're supporting as well. We also have the Virginia Clinicians for Climate Change to help with the human health impacts and sort of health piece of the puzzle, and then also George Mason's Virginia Climate Center that we're working with. Well, so those 4 partners are all involved in the process. So a lot of coordination and working through that. And so we're working through some administrative pieces, now sub-award agreements, items like that, and then kick off probably late summer and fall community-facing work in that grant.
So you haven't received the funding for that yet. Is that going to get killed with environmental justice as a word that they're looking for to zero out?
I don't have insight into what's going to happen in the federal space. We haven't, the county has an agreement for this grant, and we're proceeding. So what's that? It's a reimbursement-based grant. So yeah.
And I would just suggest getting
Call it energy and climate dominance.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably already pregnant, so make sure the county attorney is like figuring out.
Absolutely working internally. Yeah, and it have been since. Yeah.
Great.
And how much money might that end up being?
That one is I think $980,000 over 3 years. So that's So Demetra was managing that, but I've been working through.
I was going to ask the same question.
Yeah.
I know that Steve and I saw the EPA doesn't have the environmental justice map online anymore.
A lot of the tools have.
That's been migrated to Harvard.
Okay.
So if you're looking for it, it used to be called the EJ screen.
Yeah.
And there's been actually a whole slew of those maps that are GIS related, overlaying issues like environmental justice, energy justice, racial demographics, income demographics. There's actually there's a whole suite of things that have been migrated to Harvard and to some other sites. And there's an active project to get the entirety of the US government's knowledge mapped before they destroy it all.
How about the e-bike program? Is money come through on that one? Or is that,
That's also a reimbursement.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that, and then the, yeah, so those are the two more sort of like in process grants. And then the other one that was, the county was a sub-awardee or partner with the Metro Washington Council of Governments, so the COG for the next round of clean fuel infrastructure, EV charging locations. And that the agreement between the Federal Highway Administration and the Council of Governments was signed in mid-January. And so the next step would be, the county and working through the supplementary agreement for that one. So that was a big, a lot less stuff. Yep, yeah, that'll be for EV chargers on county.
So, Steve, I know you've been doing an awesome job over the last year and a half of pulling out these EV chargers on public properties, and you had a lot of success with that. Are you looking at a big picture? Are you getting to the point where like you're running out of spaces where it's effective, and that's all gonna, like, we did it, now it's gonna ramp down, and you're still like, oh, we're still finding more places to put these?
So I think that like the county property was sort of the first piece, and then I think other opportunities and applications are top of mind, and that I think aligns with like the carbon roadmap and looking at things like right of way charging. There's a lot of stuff that's happening in the right of way, and if that there's an opportunity there, if there's kind of supporting the multifamily properties that have constraints in their parking garage, and sort of how do we do that? So I think that there's going to be looking at those other applications going forward.
Did this grant fund those, or
It was
needs to be funded?
The grant was focused more on the
Just counties, yeah.
and that was sort of the grant
And then there's the decarbonization of transportation study that looked a lot of
exactly
where to focus them to make sure that we were hitting areas that are tended to be lower income. And
Yep, absolutely, yeah, and the carbon neutral transportation master plan full as well. And those strategies were pulled in, and there was a mapping exercise for looking at equity areas that were sort of spreading these around the counties and access there. So that's the third grant. And then also Doug, your question made me think of something related to one other exercise that we're doing and hope to share some really good information is actually tracking the utilization rates of sort of are people plugging in, are people using these investments. And so we have some good information, and Emily Nakbar on the team has been looking through that, and so we're taking those through some internal concurrence and having some really good.
That data will help drive the decisions you make.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And so we did, and so we pulled together a memo and shared that. And so we were right at sort of looking at the 6-month rolling average of use of some benchmarks. And so there was an NREL study for level 2 community-based charging. And they were about 14 or 15% of the time utilized over a 24-hour period. And I think we were at 15 or 16, like at the end of the calendar year. So we're refreshing that now, and that looks promising that we are sort of at or above that.
The EPA study, have you know about res stock and com stock?
Yep.
Okay. So
we're using that, and then also CoStar data, and so we have a whole sort of like we're trying to pull in as much local data as we can.
Okay.
Additional pieces for the opportunity.
And you've heard me mentioned this 1,000 times, but there's the clean energy to communities. Well, of course, right?
Yep, we worked through that piece with the.
Right. Well, but you can get, again, 40 to 60 additional hours to help integrate Comstock, Resstock in to pair with that money if you need extra.
Okay, no, that's a good, okay.
So.
I know that's a good plug.
Yeah. For anyone.
You have a new audience, yes. So,
National Renewable Energy Lab, they're free. It's paid for by Department of Energy. And they've already given us the money, so they can't take it back.
no. Knock on wood when you do that.
Well, they gave us the money 3 years ago, and we haven't used it.
Okay,
So it's in the contractor's pocket. And it's 40 to 60 free hours of technical assistance for anything for a local community. So as a representative of the local community, this panel right here could decide we want to study from NREL. As long as it takes 40 to 60 hours, it doesn't have to be the county government. It could be the county climate commission. I
would need to check that.
What's it?
I would need to check that.
You
You
need
could do that.
to see
But
if,
we probably work through staffing, so don't worry.
Yeah.
no, but I'm saying like,
We don't necessarily
I'm
have.
saying that like the federal government can choose whether a panel can.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Moving right. So,
Yep, it looks like I have 3 minutes, so I'll try to be, and then a lot of other items that are working on onsite solar, initial design for the Lover Run Community Center. So we do that on the county side, and then construction thereafter after initial design, it'll be sort of full engineering design and then permitting process and then construction. So that's really exciting, to see that, coming down the pipe. Also support on the emergency support function. I'm not sure if folks are familiar with that, but it's called ESF 12, and that's a partnership with the with DIPSM, which that's a trickier acronym, but it's the it is the sort of emergency management folks, and so we support from an energy perspective and liaise with Dominion during outages, and Washington Gas too if needed if there's issues with their distribution system. So that's another piece where we help sort of support for the ongoing efforts and a lot of with weather events, and then unfortunately with like the recent accident at DCA was involved in that too. And luckily there were energy elements of that. Also working through another good plug for the Better Climate Challenge, another DOE program where the county annually votes are all of our facility energy use and EUI, and so that's also available on the website. So if folks are interested in what buildings are doing, you can click on the county website and see that. And that is through our energy cap system, where we pull in the utility bills and report out on that, and then also benchmark that. There's also a.
Do you guys know each other? Rob works for DOE.
Yes. Yep. From that. Yeah. And so it's a great program in the county. Was in actually the Better Buildings Challenge, and so that was sort of focused on facility UI. And in 2022, it was 2022 data, and it was last year in late 23. The county reduced the energy use intensity for its buildings by 23%, exceeding our 20% goal, and so we were awarded that program. So that's pretty great. That's all of the like efficiency work that happened, and so it was a really great program. And then the new version of that is Better Climate Challenge. And in addition to the EUI, it has a greenhouse gas emissions target for county operations. And so the county signed up for a 70% reduction from here.
Why don't you have it in the chat as well?
Yeah, if you could pull up the dashboard on the county site, that's another plug for all of these tools that are out on the website that just for folks to poke around on. And I will pause there because I see it's 7:30. So folks have
You did a great job. We heard you talking faster and faster. It was awesome.
No, thanks. Yes, awesome.
Any last questions? Christine, thank you for being here. It's very nice of you to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if anyone has any questions about anything that I mentioned or anything that's going on, please email Jenna and she'll know how to get in touch and happy to continue the conversation. So thanks all.
Great, thank you. You're up to date also. Yeah. All right, well, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the next thing on our agenda is the tree canopy letter, which is a budget item. Jonas read it for us. Everyone had a chance to read it. But this is an argument, this is our throwing in our support. It changed from when Jones' original draft was, you should put this in the budget. But yesterday, the initial budget came out and there it was. So we had kind of,
I did some editing.
yes, I saw that you did. Kind of like, thank you for putting this in the budget and here's why it's still so important. So we're less, but anyway, Joan, is there anything?
Yeah, for those that don't know the background, I mean, this program's been around since 2007. And the county, it's been funded by developers when they can't actually put number of trees that they're supposed to after they've taken down trees in a site. If they can't replant them on the site, they put money into the fund and then it goes for planting in private property. So a lot of that money is managed through Arlington, where they basically give people free trees. A couple of years ago, they started their tree canopy equity fund, in which they supplemented with private donations and grant funding in order to really target communities that have low tree canopy and have a high percentage of population underserved. So trying to kind of really focus on that, and that's been a great program. They just lost funding, so they're kind of having to scale back. But it's the key thing is it's really a community building and a trust building effort. Is that what you really find out is that when you work in these communities, trust first. So they've had a great program. They've developed a lot of partners and in connections, and it's been quite successful. So that's a key issue. Is the momentum's there. If you don't want to lose it. So
and Joan and I met with, along with some other people, we met with each of the county board members last week, and we talked about other things, and they were all recognized what a great program it's been.
Now, on the other hand, the program's been around since it's getting on close to 20 years. But it's time for a refresh. To think about they've never increased the fees that developers pay. They could plant smaller trees. They could ask people in the more affluent neighborhoods to actually pay into, to get the tree, and then they just get the benefit of somebody coming in and planting a tree and that. So there's a different ways of thinking about
tree for that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different things. So it's really time for rethink about the program and how it works. But they need this bridge funding because the development funds have dried up. And the county board has been extremely supportive on it, and so has the county manager, knowing that it was coming anyway, I think. So it is in the budget for $250,000.
Right. And we will all have to brainstorm, Equal Action will have to brainstorm about other funding. But I'll have a motion to support this. My comments are still last week. Now that it's in,
So
I
moved.
think you got rid of, I think you blended them, deleted them as appropriate.
Does it say 3,800 trees instead of?
Yeah.
Jones, does this pay just for the trees or does it also pay for?
It's a planting of it. I mean, these are good sized trees. They come out, they dig the hole, they plant them, they give you a little bag to put the tree, to water it. And I think I think Casey Trees has the contract, and they've actually got a portion of it that's tree maintenance. So, especially in low income neighborhoods where maintenance of trees is kind of an issue and a concern. And I think they may have actually had some money for watering for the first year or two. So,
So do we have any questions, any discussion?
TCF and TCEF are pretty close.
Yeah, but they're two different things.
They're two different. So just
Tree Canopy Equity Fund.
Yeah. Okay.
I move we adopt the letter. Aye.
So add in chocolate so that we can fuel our discussion on the budget and the SPRC. Here, but with around this way and outside the circle as well. So Doug, over to you, and thank you, and you and Elizabeth have been working on budget, but you attended at the booth with me. Yeah.
Yes, so thank you so much, Cindy. So I'm trying to get up to speed on this budget issue. Well, no, I'm sorry, it hasn't come out yet. It's not gonna come out till.
Not even out yet either.
So that's part of my presentation. Thank you for. Okay, so I was in the federal space, and we had a federal budget is September 30th and October 1st, but the Arlington County is June 30th to July 1st. So in any regard, right now we're in FY25, and the county manager just put out a lot of information about what he's proposing for FY26. He did not put out the actually 1,000-page document called like the all-in-one, and that supposedly is going to come out on Wednesday after the county manager briefs the board in more detail tomorrow. So that'll be interesting, but for our purposes, it's not crucial because we know enough from what has been released and what's been released in past years. And so let me explain. But so just big picture, all of us Arlington County residents, you probably know this already because you were really excited to find out. The budget that the county manager is proposing does not increase the tax rate for residential real property. Yay, it stays at 1.033. Which is great, but it does increase the meals tax from 4% to 5%, or at least that's what the manager is proposing. And I know county staff know already that it has a 3.5% increase in county staff salaries. So that's, you can argue, it's too little, too not enough, whatever. That's what the county manager is proposing. The total budget for Arlington County, and when I first found this out, I was shocked. But anyway, 1.69 billion with a B. And for those who might be modest, not want to admit it, but a billion is 1,000 million. So that's a lot of money. About 674 million will go to APS under a formula, which I haven't bothered to learn, but that leaves about $1 billion county budget exclusive of APS. So the county has about 3,200 FTEs or full-time equivalent staff positions. The air team that we found out about earlier from Stephen is part of the Department of Environmental Services. The Department of Environmental Services spends about 122 million every year, or the last year or so, with 400 FTEs. The largest department within the county, Department of Human Services, which was mentioned earlier, spends about 194 million this year, and it has about 800 full-time equivalent staff positions. One more comparison, and then I'll get to the air team. The housing. Last year, the county spent 113 million on housing assistance in expenditures. 80 million of that came from county taxes and was really county money. The remainder was grants and federal and stuff. So that's like 8% of that $1 billion county budget. 8% goes to housing. Okay, let's talk about the air team. In 2025, the air team was estimated at 10 FTEs, and the budget for the air team was less than $2 million. That was down 7% from 2024. And I just said 10 FTEs, but most of us know that 2 of those FTEs were taken away in August and moved to the Climate Policy Office. The Climate Policy Office has currently 2 people, Jen and Rich, and they have spots for 2 more. And they hire them soon. So you also have to take into account the Climate Action Fund. And this is sort of a extra bit of money that the county has. And it's been very difficult for me to find out with certainty exactly what the Climate Action Fund money was spent on last year. And we don't know what's proposed to be spent on this upcoming year because we don't have the long budget document yet. But that's like $2.5 million. So if you want to look at what the county is spending, the most generous thing you can say is like, oh, $4.5 million for direct climate related issues. And then the last thing that I want to point out before I go to my conclusions is that for this year, the county manager has said that there will be $500,000 allocated to produce the climate action plan. And for those of you who may have been following things on Saturday, the county board passed a climate action resolution, which directs staff to come up with a climate action plan that will replace the CEP, Community Energy Plan, that Stephen was talking about. And it'll be more comprehensive. So it seems like a lot of money to me for a plan, but I'm sure it'll be a long plan. I'm sure they have many, many pages once they get it done. And I'm sure it's going to take like a year to come up with this climate action plan. Maybe a year and a half. I don't know. It'll be a contract. First, you have to have the contractor. You have to help, you know.
Last time it took 3 years. This time it took 3 years.
Thank you. Good. Yeah, see? Okay. Okay, so my conclusions. Only a tiny fraction of county spending is on climate issues. And if you compare it to the housing, you say, well, Arlington County cares about housing, doesn't really care about climate. Only a tiny fraction of county staff works on climate issues. Now, I wanted to ask Stephen, but he left. Like, if you had 3 more people, Stephen, could you get some more grants and run some more programs? Because like those sound like really cool programs he's working on. I think if they had more people, they could do a lot more. There are, as far as I can tell, there are no Arlington County tax dollars going directly to incentivize decarbonization. He was talking about this reimbursement, the EPA grant, but that's more like providing information. It's not actually doing upgrades. So that's a reduction in revenue and therefore not technically not direct spending. And it's very small. It's like, it's tiny. At the end of the day, that's going to be like maybe giving away $100 grand in revenue at the most. I don't know. Like it's a tiny, a drop in the bucket. So at the county board meeting, we listened to many people speak about the climate action resolution, which, I mean, it's a great thing, but one of the themes was that action is needed to convert this resolution into something that really has an effect and makes a difference. And I certainly agree with that, but the most obvious way that the county could take action to mitigate climate change or to adapt to the upcoming climate change would be to spend county money and county tax dollars. Couple specific points here then. Last month at this meeting, we had a member of this commission was urging county staff to investigate the grant opportunity. And the member of this commission was quite adamant that it should really be a good thing for the county to spend money on. And the head of the current air team, Jason, told us that he doesn't have enough staff to investigate, to apply for the federal money, to award the federal money once it comes out, to monitor that award. And so like, sorry, couldn't do it. Don't have the staff. Well, that's unfortunate. And then the other, one last point, and then I'll be done. The Green Building Incentive Program was mentioned, and the radical, innovative, yet very exciting portion of the Green Building Incentive Program for me was the idea of using county money to decarbonize buildings, to provide financial incentives to decarbonize county, not county buildings, but public buildings owned by members of the public. And I know that, you know, the county staff, there's so many things the county has to do, and climate change is sort of ephemeral. And, you know, really, is that all that important? Well, I mean, I think in 5 or 10 years, most residents and people are going to be like, this climate change stuff is real. Why weren't we doing more about it before? Why wasn't our county and our state and our federal people taking this seriously? And I think there's going to be blowback. So anyway, I would like to see Arlington County spend more money on climate issues. And I recommend that this commission should be an advocate for that.
Thank you very much, Doug. And I think in March, we hope to have a letter that will unfortunately not be mooted out by the county putting in tons of money. So we hope that we'll have a letter about the budget, which we can talk about priorities. I did think in that particular grant, the county staff had looked at it and thought the chances were small, and that's why they decided not to. But I think that in general, the point is well taken. There are a lot of there were at least a lot of federal opportunities out there, and it's very hard to have the staff to chase them all and to manage this grant. And as to the Climate Action Fund, you mentioned that pool of about $3 million that we got set aside a few years ago that we're really excited about. So that was thrilling. And then the big victory we had last year was keeping the county from spending it on a gas generator backup, burning fossil fuels. So, you know, yes, we still have the money. But yeah, right. So
Just a couple, number, we're not in a great budget year. We do have to keep that in mind in our, but what we have been actually asking for more funding for Air Team is noting that, you know, the types of things that need to be done really need to be better staffed. But, you know, tight budget year, that's going to be a hard ask. But the other thing is transparency, and given, especially with the climate resolution, and I don't think we're going to see it, certainly not fully this year, but hopefully next year, is there should be essentially climate impact statements in just about everything that's being spent. That's the sense of this resolution, is this is a whole of government. And that's another thing that we have focused on repeatedly for both the budget and the CIP, is that there's no transparency in terms of how money is being spent, and how that actually translates into lower carbon emissions.
And is Jennifer still on?
Yeah.
So
Yep, I'm here.
So one thing that I think we've talked about for a few years is the fact that the money for housing, if it is used for energy efficiency upgrades, then it makes the long-term cost of housing, especially in lower income residents, it's not just like making it easier once, it is making it easier for them pretty much in perpetuity to afford to pay their bills. And doing so also achieves the exact same goals as what we're talking about. And it's that kind of cross-cutting initiative is the exact reason why all of us here pushed to create the very office that Jennifer now occupies. And so it's that whole of government thing, right, that Joan was talking about, that it doesn't have to be an either or for housing. If the housing money in part was used to make it more affordable for the people in the housing to live in a way that helped impact the climate, it's a win for everybody.
Yeah. So the EPA grant sounds like it's doing a little bit of that. But again, even with the green building incentive policy, if you're expanding it to all existing buildings, you need enough people working to it to kind of get that outreach. And even if the money's coming from somewhere else, it's less clear where that money might be coming from these days. But you know, but you still need the outreach and the education.
Yeah, I think in terms of, as we think about messaging and advocacy to see better investments, there's some key parts of the resolution that I think are worth emphasizing. Because when you look at the resolution, it is bringing in a whole set of plans that are mentioned. It's not just about energy. It's not just about, the kind of things you typically associate with. It's very, very broad. And I think you have to say, and I think it was very intentional to bring those other activities of the county into the climate change referral. And I think it's important to emphasize that. And the other piece that really stuck in my mind is there's a point at which they talk about the policies they want to develop, but turn them into programs. Programs are not policies that float. Programs are people working together to do things that have agendas. And I think it's important to emphasize your resolution emphasizes creation of programs. Where are those going to be? Who's going to be in them? You have to start making investments if you're going to implement that vision that's in that resolution.
Now, we will get more details. They'll have a budget discussion tomorrow at the board meeting, and I know Jennifer is actually going to brief out her actual plan, or at least as much as she can get in the 15 minutes or whatever they give her to do it. So that'll be, and then actually there'll be even more detail on March 4th when there is a briefing with DES, which we usually get to participate in. So that's the opportunity to, yeah. So that at that point they should say how much of the Climate Action Fund is spend it and what they're planning to spend the rest of it on. So it's a moving picture here until we get that stuff. But then,
But I would say even that, those monies are just a paltry drop in the bucket.
Yeah,
compared to
yeah,
all the other
yeah.
things.
Yeah, but again, it's
If you give them more money based on its importance to
Yeah.
the lives of Arlington residents.
yeah, again, and some of it is, we'll see how much they're being clearer this year about how it impacts climate. I'm kind of suspecting we won't get much more than we've seen in the past.
Okay.
And what we're gonna have to temper a little bit, what we're saying is recognizing that we've got, somewhat tight budget. And by the way, there's a lot of uncertainty of what's gonna happen in our community and what community members are gonna need. If unemployment goes way up, then it has all, so anyway, but again, it's, a lot of this is just thinking and is, you don't have to necessarily spend much more money or any more money. It's just making decisions in the way that gets to what you want to do. Low carbon cement isn't usually, especially, if you're getting 20% or so reduction, isn't much more expensive, my understanding, than regular kind of Portland cement. So, there's that kind of thinking and decision making that goes on. And in most cases, it's going to save you money in the long run. When you buy an EV, you pay a little bit more upfront, but the long-term costs are going to save you. So, kind of keep reminding the county government that, they have to be thinking of these long-term things and just, it's gotten in.
More of this come in March.
Just one thing I'd bring up, just because they're actually cutting funding to the Northern Virginia Conservation Trust, which is the program, which is a nonprofit that actually helps landowners put their land in easements, which is a good way to help protect tree canopy fund and natural resources. So they did try to do this a couple of years
The county
ago.
provides money to the Northern Virginia Conservation Trust.
Yeah, to help manage some of the conservation
Putting
easements.
that down this year.
They're cutting it out altogether, I think is the proposal. So that's,
There'll be a lot of things that we want to.
yeah. Yeah.
So, on that, Joan did our letter last year, August. Yeah, very tough budget year, kind of unemployment. We definitely have office vacancies and they're growing by leaps and bounds. So there are difficult decisions and.
If we don't advocate,
Exactly.
who will speak for the trees?
Doug.
Yeah.
Well, so thank you all for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great groundwork thing. What's going to be very difficult. So with that, so SPRCs, we're gonna talk about SPRCs for our next chunk, site plan development process developments. And Joe is gonna kick it off by telling us that Joe did write his letter and his checklist, but because the project got slowed down, they don't have all the information you really need. So he did all that, but we're not gonna look at it hopefully until next month with the project developers. But Joe, do you want to talk a little? So this project may be a detour to the transportation commission. For some reason.
There's a lot of transportation. Most of the discussions for every single one of the SPRCs, even if it wasn't about transportation, turned into transportation. So I think that's one of the reasons it's being diverted.
It's actually, that's typical.
Yeah.
Every project goes to the Transportation Commission. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because maybe not. Most of them do.
Anyway.
Maybe Melwood, there wasn't doing much with the roads and that, but it is not unusual for the projects to go to the Transportation Commission.
So we don't have any future dates at the moment, but it's a development hotel. Pentagon, I believe, is the official title, but it's over it's on Glebe, I think, over. It's 2 dilapidated hotels they're going to tear down, turn into, I think, a 9-story multifamily plus 37-ish townhomes. But the townhomes are going to be for rent. They're not actually selling the townhomes. It's a single family. So it's going to be a full rental property. It's right next to a church and a cemetery. So they've been working very closely with all the community members throughout that to be respectful of that during the development and during the residents living there, and being able to incorporate some of the historical aspects of the church within the construction of it. So they've been getting a lot of feedback throughout the whole process and incorporating that throughout from the community members. Their accommodations to incorporate some of the culture and history of the area into the building have not been great. It's been like, here's a modern building that looks like anything in Clarendon, plus a little brown on the side. So they've been taking some of that feedback slowly and trying to amend it and putting in a lot of green space. There's still a lot of concern about how it's going to be used without disturbing the land of the cemetery directly next to it. But overall, I only got like 10 minutes at the end to actually ask all the sustainability questions when they went to the presentation meeting. They spent about 10 seconds and said next, and then flipped off the slide. So that was, but their sustainability person wasn't there. They brought 15 people, but not the sustainability person. So most of the questions they have to get back to me on. So they were supposed to send a follow-up. I followed up with Kevin, so then he sent the questions. So I'm waiting to hear back. So I can't really finish it until I have the response on a lot of these, but overall, it went pretty well.
Yeah.
How interesting. They said that project was all electric on their presentation, although the initial energy model said they were using gas for the HVAC.
Yeah, and well,
you want to confirm that.
Yeah, a lot of their answers were, we believe so.
Oh. I'd go with the energy model until they absolutely come out and say, again, and they give, this comes up time and time for people, is that it's if we get gas, it's actually going to be lower in greenhouse gas emissions for the time period, because they're assuming that the grid is not going to change. So, of course, they're not taking into account that gas has got more potent greenhouse gas emissions than the measures that actually are presented. So, it's probably dirtier than coal, to be honest. But so, yeah, it's just kind of pushing back on that. And that's where, letters always have to say is electrification means that when the grid goes renewable, the carbon emissions will go to zero. And again, they're using resistance hot water, which I've yet to find anybody willing to try the heat pump.
So with that, thank you, Joe, for bringing that forward. So with that, we're going to talk about our SPRC checklist as we have in several meetings. Thanks to Mark. So we had a small group who worked on this. Mark, Rob, Joan, Melissa, me. And we were very good about not ever meeting by email. But when we talked about this last year, that our goal was just updating the team, and that we a lot of projects were taking the green building and business policy. So time hard things with the green building and business policy wasn't working for us. So, but as our group went forward, we felt like we should go further. And that is a real question that I want to talk about tonight is, should we go further than just updating? Should we make our, we've got this new climate action resolution. Oh, and Doug, you were part of this too. Sorry. So
did that sheet ever work?
okay, we'll come back. So
I think we're gonna probably just need somebody to go in and redo this whole thing because trying to edit it over, it's now on its 20th or 30th efforts to try to edit it, so.
But in any case, so if we do decide to go further in keeping with the climate action resolution and with the goals of what do we really think it takes? These new buildings, which are built now, but are gonna be here for 4 years, and certainly past the 2050 goal for Arlington to reach carbon neutrality. And the decisions they're making now are going to affect all that, then should we be updating the checklist? Or should we be updating, not leading the witness here, should we be updating the checklist to look at what it really takes, in our opinion, to meet those goals? But that's a big change. And if we do that, then even if we do it in stages, then we have to figure out how to socialize that with and rely on our analysis and to let the developers know. So that's a big future item to talk about. So now I'm going to just run through the changes that the group made. One question that came up is we needed to put a paragraph, which none of us could technologically quite figure out how to do, but if we click on that, if you click on the blue, it opens up and we can read it. That light blue thing where right about blue. Yeah, so this is our introductory paragraph. Thanks, Rob, for getting as much of it to show as he did. So we said, so this is to frame what our goals are and to say that we're not tying it to the GBIP, different from the GBIP, but we do tie to other recognized standards in the field. So we're not just making everything up. Our goal is to determine whether a project aligns with the county's goal for carbon neutrality by 2050, along with some of the other things that Mark was mentioning earlier, that there are a lot of other plans like tree canopy coverage, stormwater management, environmental justice. And I said that we would be happy to discuss with any developers, which is probably a lie, but that's what I said. So that was the proposed introductory paragraph to help frame what this is about. So I'm just going to keep going. You can close that back up if you can figure out how to scroll down.
I can fix it right now.
Yeah. Beauty of Google Docs.
There it is.
Okay, I think it shows up on, but I printed it. So then if we go to the next top, certification is our next criteria.
Can I, maybe just the first is instead of, I don't think we should say a C2E2 baseline. I think we need to say this is, kind of minimum requirements for sustainability or something like that. Because we're basing this on, the county's got these goals that they're going to try for carbon neutrality. So if certain things don't get met.
Back to that, let's look at the criteria, then we can figure out what we should name it.
Yeah.
Let's get back
Yeah,
to that.
and the same for the exceed element, but I just.
First criteria is certification. So it used to just say lead. I still have 4.0, which a lot of people are still using, but that's a question for this group. Should it just be 4.1? Should it, right, I see John's comment up there. Then if you can get rid of the comment, we can see what's in exceed.
Well, the other thing we could do is make it platinum, which is actually what was proposed under the GBIP.
Platinum is what we have for exceed, so that'd be a big change.
No, 4.0 platinum. Yeah. Yeah. or 5.
Could we just simply say, I mean, I don't know what the latest one is, but when they change to the next one so that it effectively
Right, yeah.
self-updates, if we can just say,
Yeah.
but could we
Yeah.
just simply say the latest?
I haven't memorized them.
Yeah. Right.
Well,
Yeah.
but that's kind of the point, right? Because like maybe
Yeah.
they'll update it, I don't know, in 2 years, and if this sits around for another
Yeah.
4 years.
I think it's taken them forever to update to 5, so.
When 5.0 comes out, it should automatically.
Yeah, yeah.
We could say lead 4.0 platinum or gold, but I don't
Yeah.
know, but I don't know if we're making the standard a lot. So I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what GBIP is. Basically, I think we need to start communicating as 4.0, which is what all the developers are still using, is basically business as usual. You know,
Then
yeah.
in Exceed, we've added other standards that aren't. Okay, and then we'll work on the language and see it'll automatically update to 5.0 and 5.0.
Yeah.
Are we sure about when the standards usually come out? I don't know too much about LEED, but I know about the other building standards. It's that they're often built into a time frame because the plans we'd be assessing when 5 comes out would be planned on like 4.1 because they can't build to plans that aren't out.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so that,
It gets very low. Well, I
Yeah.
think that's a good, so those are things we'll have to look at. So maybe we shouldn't say for 5.0 when phased in or something like that. The next one, the zero carbon. We've been giving points if you evaluate the feasibility of zero carbon, you can then say, oh, that looks really hard, I'm not doing that. So our recommendation or kind of thesis that we drop that, but we would like to do, if you do achieve zero carbon, that's a great thing, so then get points for that without giving points for each.
but we've already,
I've also suggested into the one above. So
I think that's already, should be already, we should build that into, I mean, you know, the Exceed should be the passive house, living future interest, zero carbon certification, you know, the kind of the baseline standard buildings that really are. Yeah, yeah, I mean,
just get rid of the zero.
yeah,
I have a question.
The whole row.
you know,
How does Earthcraft certification work? Because it seems to be saying, oh, wait,
We
I don't know,
got zero
yeah.
carbon.
no, can you scroll? Oh, yeah.
We got
Because it says multifamily Earthcraft also permissible, but it says the exact same thing in the next.
Yeah, I think, to me, I think it really is the passive house zero. It's the living futures, zero carbon certifications. Or we can maybe put it or equivalent. So if somebody else comes up with, I mean, the idea is that they're going to be highly energy efficient. They're going to be all electric and they're going to be to the extent possible running off of on-site renewable energy.
But what's that? I guess, I don't know what all the different categories are.
Yeah.
So are we saying? Well, I don't, it seems to just say Earthcraft is
Yeah.
permissible.
Yeah, but I don't know that
it says
Earthcraft
it-
requires electrification,
Well, but my
and
point,
neither does LEED.
regardless, we have the exact same standard for
Yeah,
both.
right,
needs
you
and
can't, so, yeah. I would drop that from the exceeds column. Yeah, I think I would just focus, I personally think focusing on,
Just Earth.
yeah,
Okay, so moving on, that gives us lots to look at.
I mean, I don't even know if the lead, even if you get to platinum, whether that would be zero carbon. I mean, pardon?
Can I ask a question here? It has always been puzzling to me. It's been puzzling to me to figure out what we get out of LEED, what we get out of some of these other
Yeah.
standards.
Yeah. I mean, I think they have like zero energy and other different subcategories for lead that, but again, yeah, it's not been very good for us because, yeah, you can get lead gold, you can, I suspect even lead platinum and still include fossil gas on site. So again, lead's a little bit of everything.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, LEED is just being pushed out because they can say, oh, you have bike racks in the front of your school, and now it's LEED platinum because it just made those extra 5 points.
Yeah.
Are they
Yeah.
using the?
Yeah, and for our developers, it's easy to get, certainly easy to get to LEED gold because a lot of the initial ones are you're building a site that's already been developed, or you're close to transportation, or basically you're building in an urban environment. So they can already check out a lot of the boxes, and then they can go low on the things like energy optimization. Yeah, well, I think we
better sense.
Yeah.
I mean, Cindy, I think at one point you were mentioning that some of the folks have gotten smart about bringing in all kinds of standards.
Yeah.
They keep mentioning, and they say, well, it's the same as LEEDs, sort of, it's close enough. And what is it? We're debating kind of.
In his project, they said it was halfway to LEED platinum.
It means they're LEED gold. They're not LEED silver.
It feels to me like a brilliant tactical measure.
Yeah.
That industry folks would use.
Yeah. Yeah.
And make it very confusing. And it makes it confusing, not just if it's confusing to us, it's going to be very confusing to folks who are actually going to vote on our recommendations. So I just wonder more and more whether you just want to say what you in some of these categories and not try to expect one of these standards to solve it for you.
That'd be an amazing. Let's go through the categories and get some sense of the issues. Next category is a new category, so it doesn't fall into the just getting rid of references to updating LEED or references to GIP. It's waste diversion, which we think is important. Really has raised that issue. Rob has raised the question whether 75 is too high for needs.
No. That's
75 was in the, when I looked, I couldn't about 75 in the GBIP, so I think it's,
yeah. I think it's pretty much that the projects I've looked at recently are getting the LEED points for waste diversion, and that requires like 75. So I mean, I think 75 is really the baseline, is we really should be looking to 85, 90.
Okay. Yeah. Reuse, recycling.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's go to the next one.
Waste diversion is construction waste.
Yeah.
Construction waste, right.
Yeah.
So, next one is building materials. And Melissa, can you talk about this one and one after this? Which are consistent for the LEED 50.
This was based off of LEED 50, not inclusive of the conversation we just had on whether LEED is legitimate or not. So I don't know. I was just doing my first SPRC this week, and I know they give us the LEED. So maybe, because we do want to use the language builders use, but so I don't know. They're not supposed to this question, this whole area, if we want to get deeper. But
well, I think it's something it's useful because that's what they're using. So I mean, it's not useful for us to set requirements that we actually can't figure out whether they're doing it or not. So if they're, if they're doing it as part of the GBIP and they're almost everybody has to, I think everybody has to do a LEED or similar certification as part of the process. So,
Or at least a checklist.
yeah. So,
And we should update this one too then.
So in terms of the, so you have a rail to gate for the meets and then a 20% for the seats.
It's cradle to gate.
From the moment it is created to the moment it is disposed and used.
Is it cradle to grave or is it cradle to gate?
Cradle to gate is like once you've actually been constructed. Grave would be after. So that the constructors can't control.
That's an expression
It-
you
it-
could use.
yeah.
Yeah.
So basically it's,
Not put that in.
Well, yeah, it's because
Let's not use it.
the builders can't control, what happens to the building 40 years later.
So you would like say until opening or until
Yeah.
completion of the build.
yeah.
Yeah, like
You can just highlight that.
Yeah, I mean, we could just talk about it, the embedded carbon in the construction and
sure.
I mean, that's basically what they're talking about.
Melissa, can you talk about the next? The it's similar in that 35.0, and then I'm gonna ask Rob to, but let's tell us about the next one. Yeah. It doesn't say cradle to gate, but it talks about under 10% improvement in energy performance over LEED 5.0 or a 20%.
I'm not sure that was mine.
No, that isn't yours, that's Melissa's. But I was going to, one question that you've raised several times which is, when we use these certification, and then we have our own, and some of these standards are included in those certifications, and then we separately call them out, aren't we double counting? So you have to get it, you have to have that certification, you have to have done these things, and then if we give you more points, you're doing them, double counting. And I've said I don't care, but
Well, I think it's just a lot on developers. I'm looking at the lead scoring in the 110 points right here. And so this is like an industry accepted standard and we're developing our own scorecard saying, well, this is what meets, our requirements as C2E2 or to build in this community. But we're giving some combination of what's kind of official and what the world is using and then something else that we just made up that's partially in this standard and partially not, and maybe partially exceeds what's in that standard. So I think it just creates confusion, creates a lot of extra work maybe for the developers and for us to try and go through and check more boxes. So to the extent we can be consistent with the same categories that are in whatever standard we're using, whether it's community or passive house or whatever, and then if we want to go beyond that, we say, here's what's in LEED, but we're saying our minimum is LEED plus this in this category. Right now, they're all on separate lines, even though the LEED category covers, 40 different elements, right?
maybe one way.
We could.
That's a lot of
I think some of the certifications usually capture a lot of things that we're not gonna measure or get at, like, there's a lot of things in terms of healthy buildings and that, and again, there's a lot of extra work, I think, that goes into getting those certifications. So I think, to me, I don't know that it's much, but, you can do LEED Gold and not actually achieve 24% at least, which is what the standard now is. But that, thing is that number changes depending on what level of LEED you're at, and it gets extremely confusing, except that everybody's still going with the 24%, which is the minimum energy optimization that the county requires.
There's a lot here. Yeah, I don't know that.
Yeah.
But what I think I said, other than, I didn't really say I don't care. What I said was, I feel like we're calling out the things that we think are the most important, and I don't mind if they're sort of double counted because the certification covers so many things.
Yeah. I would drop doing the zero carbon
Yeah. We're gonna
certificate, just drop that. Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so thinking about all of these issues that are sort of in the parking lot, I'm adding double counting to them. But the next one was this thing about, similar to what we did with zero carbon. that you just, if you provide a narrative on energy efficiency, just tell us what you're doing. We're gonna give you points, and if you make it publicly available on the FPRC website, we're gonna exceed. Well, none of that actually accomplishes anything. You tell us you're doing nothing and make it public. That's not exceeds. So I propose getting rid of that category entirely.
Which category is that?
The GBI required narrative.
Oh, yeah, that, absolutely.
The next one is the Energy Star, and thanks for putting in more detail on it. The Energy Star 75 within 4 years, 85 within. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that's important because that's, just to use a phrase I just learned, cradle to gate, that goes beyond the gate. Right, like cradle to gate is when the building is commissioned and opened, but Energy Star actually continues to measure the energy performance after the building's occupied.
Our letter goes with it.
Right, yeah.
So, right.
Yeah, is that actually, because, yeah, we can't measure, because we don't know, we only know what they're committing to, and I've yet to figure out what the distinction is between, what would the energy performance look like compared to ASHRAE or whatever the damn standard is that we're using is compared to what the Energy Star level is, because it's a totally different animal. There's some relationship, but it's not very clear. So, does it make sense?
Kind of along that lines, but asking if there's any enforcement mechanism for that within those 4 years.
Yeah, there is. I mean, the county, the reason the Energy Star is in there is because everything else is model based. And when you construct the building, you don't know, there's no guarantee that it's actually going to perform the way the model said it was going to do. So requiring the Energy Star certification means that they have to come back and say, yeah, we're meeting it.
Right, but I think her point is, like, there's no enforcement mechanism of this unless they're doing it through the Green Building Incentive Program.
Right.
Right, so there's no way for us to enforce this.
Yeah, no.
Only if
we don't
if
know,
they've
yeah.
subscribed to the Green Building
I mean,
Incentive
the
Program.
Energy Star is really the county's enforcement, and they get a payment by the developer that goes into escrow, and they get that back when they've met the requirement. But yeah, if they're doing the Green Building Incentive Policy, otherwise, yeah. Yeah.
Do you think, are we comfortable with 75 and 80?
Yeah.
But I thought we said it doesn't matter because it's not possible, not under this.
Yeah. Well, they will they will say what they're getting for Energy, or what they're committing to for Energy Star. So, I mean, we can check it off to say, but in terms of, will we know or not, it's basically a repetition in some ways of the previous one. But, we want to give a little extra credit on that.
And energy, there is a benefit to using Energy Star. The next one is energy benchmarking, and it just referred to GBIP, and I just tried to add, instead of referencing GBIP, that this isn't really meant to be a change. So energy benchmarking is something that I don't see. But this isn't a change.
I mean, isn't that something that's built into the Green Building Incentive Policy? Again, if they're participating, they just want to get the data to know how their buildings are performing over 10 years.
Next 4, which are electrification, are really a key question for us, because we've been giving needs for just being your infrastructure allows for you to electrify at some point. But now we're talking about are we going to require electrification? We're starting to see more buildings, even Hotel Pentagon, which I think has a score of 60 on your partial worksheet. It is fully electrified, and Melwood, which I just did, was all electric as well. got 70. So we're starting to see these things. The big question we've talked about in this meeting before is if you use a backup gas generator or something like that, does that mean you're not fully electrified? So this is needs fully electrified except for the power. And then the next one, right? So that, Joan, that's my questions in the margin are, do we want to change this? So then it would be, if we said it had to be all electric, then in the next three categories, they don't have to be all electric for needs. So, and that's the question.
Well, that's why I think the next three categories should be all electric and drop that first category.
Okay.
And then we can, because we talk about batteries a little later on.
Should it be all,
Yes.
that question, so you think we should go for all electric?
Okay, I feel very strongly about this. No, you can overrule me. I'm good on that.
What do other people think? Because that is a big change.
Not really, because the way we've tended to, at least the way I've tended to
See
go.
what anybody else said. We know where you stand.
Is there any other zero emissions option other than all electric? Well, I think zero emissions has
Well,
got to be.
geothermal.
I mean, I do think.
That's the all electric, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Geothermal counts as electric. So I do think if we're serious about the resolution the county just passed, you don't screw around with anything other than electric.
Big change.
Well, I think
But
we should,
if we want to get to carbon neutral.
Yeah.
Jonathan,
And
I can't see you guys down there, so shout out.
I'm trying to understand, are you talking about basically eliminating line 16 and just breaking out the details and keeping the details for the following three?
Yeah.
Or are you talking about, wait, can I finish? Sorry.
Yeah.
Or are you just simply saying, keep line 16 and get rid of the following three lines?
Yeah.
Like, you have to meet. So they could get some points if they had electric hot water, but they didn't have any.
Right, well, and that's kind of the point, right? Like if line 17 and 18 were fully electric, but they didn't have electric cooking, right, then that is a different score than if everything's rolled into one and they don't have electric.
Do we have any sense of how many applicants we're going to lose if we don't have the backup of fossil fuel?
You say lose, what do you mean?
Well, they're just not going to, they wouldn't buy into it. Just would say,
Well,
We don't care. This isn't a green building incentive program where they're gonna be like, well, then heck, I'm gonna take my business elsewhere and do something else. This is just a score we give them.
this is a
well,
way,
but I'm
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic with where we are and taking the heart of line. But I keep trying to think on the other side of the table, what they're thinking, and I'll say, well, if I can't even have that little bit of gas,
You're saying you can't.
you're saying you can.
The batteries.
And I thought people were saying, no, we don't.
No.
yeah, I'm willing to.
Joan was saying,
No, I'm willing to say for a few things and
Okay.
retail, but we can, extra points for going, kind of the farthest distance. But if they don't have the basic HVAC, hot water and cooking, pretty much nobody's doing gas other than a couple of expensive condominiums. Then,
How they do it.
yeah.
As you're saying.
I'm just a skeptic and a cynic and an observer of human behavior. I would think the developers are gonna say, I've got a great project here. The county board always approves all these projects, and I don't give a rat's patootie what C2E2 says. And so I would say C2E2 should have high standards.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be messing around here. Plus, we just had this climate action resolution. If ever there was an opportunity for C2E2 to increase its standards and push, harder on the county, we should do it.
Yeah, and this is our communications mechanism. I mean, it's a way of engaging with the developers and getting a sense, but really we're communicating to the planning commission, we're communicating to the county board, we're communicating to the broader community of saying, we have these goals of being carbon neutral. Besides, we're in this climate crisis and we've got to stop burning fossil fuels. And this is,
John, where do you stand? So I think I'm hearing support going to electrification during that. I guess it's through the next session.
But I'm sorry.
But with the backup.
In terms of electrification though, are you saying they can break it up in the 3 categories?
Yeah.
Yes.
So they can do it for 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. They get points. Okay. All right.
Keep all 4 categories. It allows for the backup gas generator.
Right. Okay.
And then it's HVAC. Okay, EV charging, that has not been changed. Are there, I don't know if there, EV charging hasn't been changed.
15 and then 10, 15.
I mean, it should be.
Maybe it should be changed, but I haven't changed.
Wouldn't change.
At this
You wouldn't
point,
increase it from 4%?
I mean, right now, I think if somebody's doing 10%, that's pretty good, but if you make it all EV ready, the clients are gonna push, the customers in the garage are gonna, make a lot of pressure on filling out the garage. So I think some people have to pay for it, they have it installed, but it won't be a matter of, no, it's impossible to do if you make it all EV ready. So.
But I mean,
but this
then I'm confused. If meeting the standard is
4 and 15.
is 4% and only 15, that is old.
That's the old one. So the new one is 10 and 50.
well,
No,
that was
it's
the
not.
one we always.
I mean, the one, right, that's the one we always said was 10 and 50.
Yeah, but that's been the exceed.
That's exceeding.
Oh, that's exceeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always
That's
gave.
what I'm saying.
No,
Now,
I got
unlike
confused.
like-
I thought we were.
Like the goons
Yeah, we usually.
were tearing
Did
out
that give them a
electric
means?
vehicle charging stations in all federal buildings. That's not
No,
a rumor.
remember, they
That's
have
not
to
a rumor. They're actually they're spending millions of dollars
rip them out.
to rip them out.
Yes.
Yeah, along with burning all the.
So I'm gonna put that in the parking lot for now.
To increase the.
So the renewable energy, the next section is renewable energy. So one thought is so it only has 2, in this category, there are only 2 factors. One is renewable energy, that, the on-site solar. The second one is battery energy storage, which practically nobody seems to have. So one question is whether we should get rid of that or just use it as a bonus point or something like that. Whether it really deserves its own category since absolutely nobody's doing it.
Yeah.
So for the renewable energy, I think for the exceeds, I think we should, might be controversial, I think we should take off the offsite annual load. I think purchasing RECs is just no longer an extent. You're not exceeding anything anymore by purchasing RECs for 2 cents a watt or something like that. So it's.
Well, could you qualify it as either with a direct PPA, like bundled PPA, additionality or something like that? Because, I mean, kind of the challenge is that most building, like if you go to a taller building, the reality is that sticking, 50 solar panels on a 30 floor, 20 floor building, it's nice. but it doesn't really do anything, right? Like, and it'd be much more of value for them to contract for bundled racks for additionality for them to actually help get built an offsite wind or solar turbine.
Help build is usually.
Yeah. Well, they're
There's
still,
so much- if they're contracting through a.
You could have a long-term PPA. If you're just
Right.
doing Rex, you have to buy every year. and
Right, but that's
They're
right.
gonna still commit to it the first year, then they won't have to do it anymore after that, right?
These are usually too small for PPAs, right? They're
Green
they're
tariff.
going into.
Right, that's kind of the one that bundles the generation and is, that's what you get from your utility, yes?
Right, but then kind of like what he was saying, then that's only really 1 year, right? Unless you're gonna sign a long-term agreement.
Green tariffs can be signed or
I think
made into
signed
a
1 year.
period of time or pair up with.
They really don't like the offsite aspect of it. That bothers me.
I mean, you can, I think there should be definitely prior to the onsite if we're doing some exceeding.
So just to meet, there's some on-sites.
Equivalent.
Rex.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's the rec. So that's the offsite stuff, which is how,
For exceeds, we could do on-site and off-site for 50% of annual load with off-site being no more than 10%.
Or somehow, like you're right in the building design and the space that we're talking about here. You just somehow have to say, like, maximize your on-site, like use as much as you can on-site and whatever else, 50%, if you gotta use Rex or long-term PPA or whatever else, but you're not gonna get, for a lot of these development projects that we're seeing, not enough roof space or
Right.
open space to actually provide a significant amount of load.
Use of on-site. Oh, it won't be 10. I think that is kind of.
It's a great standard.
Yeah, I think that's. Change for exceeds. Right now, it just.
Green tariff, like she was saying.
Yeah, we're gonna have to wordsmith that too, because I
Yeah.
think that's gonna be a combination with
Right.
green roof space and stuff. So we're, not only do we put a solar panel up there, do we have a rooftop walkway with some green space too, and we're saying.
Right.
So, yeah, very simple.
Reminds me, as we think about what we're doing with this, and we want to update it, we've talked about it at several meetings, but, there's a lot to this, especially as we get more ambitious every time, which I think is good. But I did want to mention that thanks to Mark for tracking, but there are 10 active SPRCs right now. There are 13 of us, there are 10 SPRCs. So do the math, we all have to do, I've got 2, Joan's got 2, but we've been doubling people up on SPRCs. But anyway, just words wise, a lot of people are doing a lot of other things as well, but there's a lot of development happening. So we will have to use at least some of these changes.
I would just follow that up, and it's like, so for somebody like me, who I don't even know what it is, but if I'm gonna do one of these things, it needs to be really objective and not subjective. It needs to be really dumbed down and plain and simple, and whether an offsite rent qualifies or not. I mean, can we not go there and just make it really simple?
I'm in your exact vision, so I get it. So that on battery energy storage, so we don't. But on battery energy storage, we want to say that it is a,
Wouldn't say backup generation. Just
backup
battery.
storage. All right, so we'll just leave it as it is on this to rush through these the last category is sort of all the non-energy. And we have, well, there's a lot here too. So biophilia, use of native plants, and I put in be within, talking about making things up as we go, be within 3% of the tree canopy goal, because it seemed, Doug's point, it just seemed to, like, the tree canopy is good, the tree canopy is bad. These projects have a tree canopy goal under some master plans. And either they meet it or they don't. And I think we should have some direct tie to those numbers where they, at least where they exist.
I have to say, for the first time, I've seen specific, it's at least county staff saying this is the target for the tree canopy coverage for this site. And one, they said it met. The other one, it says that it didn't meet. I'm still trying to figure out how, when you've got 90% tree canopy or impervious surface, they get 35% tree canopy coverage, but we'll talk about that. Anyway, but they're actually bringing this up and they're tying it to the forestry and natural resources fund. So that's a change. I think that will help us do this a little better. And it is much more concrete than, you know, because they all now throw in a standard slide about what biophilia is, which is very pro forma, and it, you know, and they put in a couple of pretty pictures. Yeah. Oh, you know. And
plastic. We haven't said anything about percentage weighting here at all yet.
Yeah.
Did I miss that? And I was.
Yeah, we have a slide on it, but
Okay.
there it is. For the percentage weighting, and thanks to Rob for closing this. And the red numbers are my proposed changes. But you can see the categories. So I knocked down EV because I wanted, environmental sustainability has all these other categories. It has biophilia, tree canopies, you know, dark sky, light pollution, bird friendly class, and the huge one is stormwater, and also water use, water abundance. All of that is in environmental sustainability. I didn't want it to be debated. So that's why I proposed that. So that's what's on the table. Or if we wanted to just look at the category, we were just looking at the electricity from renewable energy, which was the battery storage, which has the on-site solar generation. We could merge that into another one, and then we would re-up. You know, that might end up with just one category. To get rid of battery storage, we could put it in energy efficiency, and then we'd have 10 more points. We go back to that waiting. But anyway, somewhere in there is what's the three. Rob, do you want to say anything about what you would need?
No, not in particular. I'm just noting that the environmental sustainability needed to be increased because there were a lot of subcategories there and a lot of things that we care about. So with that formerly was, I think, only 15. It's go to 20,
Right.
25. That's fine. Fine with your changes.
Yeah, I think that pretty much fits pretty well.
So nobody wants to get rid of renewable energy altogether and switch it somewhere else. We can keep it with it in place. Okay, so wow, Doug, thanks. Now we got agreement on that.
When it comes to
digesting.
I'm having objections here.
We were having a discussion about getting rid of green building certification.
Yes, it's we're building the car while we're driving.
I got you.
I would like, so I know that Joe should get
Yeah, I hope, well, hopefully it's more or less explanatory. One thing I did do, you know, we've talked about, we don't want to have something where we say comply with state law.
Yeah.
Which I absolutely agree with, which is kind of everybody has to do that. But I took some time to look at what the state law was. And it's actually much stronger than I thought it was. And so what you see in the language here is kind of an abbreviated version of some of what is in the state laws. And basically, you know, you have a situation where there are two different scenarios that they tie this into, which is one where there's likely to be a certain degree of flooding in an area or not. And if you don't have flooding, you have to meet the tighter standard. I guess to save those good places. So that's option one, is a variation in the language, simplifying it a bit. Basically, the heart of the state standard, which I think makes sense because it's the standard that the county is using as well, is the so-called 10-year, 24-hour storm. A 10-year storm has a 10% chance of happening in any 1 year. And 24 hours is a long time. So it's a fair amount of water. And you have to have retention or detention, but the key term is confining. That means confining the water so that it stays controlled until you get it into the stormwater. And it's basically there to make sure you avoid localized flooding. So it's the real party you're protecting are the neighbors, to the extent there are neighbors. And that seems to be a strong standard that you want to have.
Did I understand you correctly to say, if you are in a flood-prone zone, that the standards are lower?
Yes. But
So
here
basically,
it is.
You're in a bad place, we don't care if you and your neighbors flood.
Make it work.
Here's the way it works in the standard. They give two options to the regulator. One of which is actually the same standard as option one, which is you have to control the water until it gets into essentially the system. Okay. So you can do that, but the regulator has the option of saying, well, if it kind of gets out and it's the post-development downstream is less of a peak than the pre-development was, you're okay. Now, they don't tell you how much different it has to be. It could be a gallon of water. So it doesn't really say what it is. But, and so that's variation option two. I'm sorry, that's option two. I threw in significantly lower as a narrative standards, and then I came up with two other variations, one of which is a percentage and another one is a X number of gallons. But to really put kind of a hard stop on it to say, well, whatever you do, don't have only this much of a difference. What's that? Well, we can try to get an answer, but as I talked to Jason and he was explaining how you measure some of these storms. And there are about 10 different criteria you think about when you're trying to measure them. And that's not packable within one of these things.
Legally required.
What's that?
These are legal mandates from the state.
Yeah.
Why do we have to enforce?
But we can just say, you can say simply, please show the evidence you're complying with the state regulation. And then they're legally obligated to demonstrate that.
Well, you could do that. That's a shortcut, but when I was initially reading this, I say, this is a pretty tough standard. Maybe that could be done. But then you realize that there is a loophole there, which is the one I was talking about, which is if you're in an area where there is a fair amount of flooding, which you expect you'd want the highest standard.
Right.
It actually gives them an option of having the lowest standard.
Right, but they're gonna have to, whether they're using the loophole or not, they're gonna have to document what standard they're meeting, right?
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to show, right, whether they have to have a 10 or a 2, they're gonna have to show what their number is. So that is one way that we can,
Yeah, but it isn't the storm. It is that the standard itself gives you the option. And it's for the regulator to decide if you will accept that, which goes then back to essentially Arlington as the implementer of the state law. But whether you'll accept the option that says, I'm not going to have complete control like option one. I'm going to have this option that says I get to have something that's less than the amount that was there before the storm.
Right.
And it's going to be kind of small.
They have to be able to.
I know. Yeah.
another big discussion. So I think
Okay.
these are very important issues that both have to go in the parking lot. And because I think we have, so in terms of where we go from here, I think we should make some of the changes that we need to be circulated. And then maybe start using it like I said, there are 10 SPRCs right now. This is, I don't know if we can wait to roll out. This is what we were just speaking to the county board. Can't wait till you have the full plan to start making your changes. You've got to start acting now. I kind of feel that way about us. But I really appreciate all of the input, all the discussion, both from the board and from them.
Got a good suggestion there.
Yes, I'm sure. I mean, use somebody who knew. Right. Thanks, John. That is a good idea.
That's a perfect thing for the C2C program.
Yeah, wow. So, Rob,
Can I also suggest that whoever's got an active one now that just did a score, that they also, after we get this newer version, that we run the score, and just to do a comparison of these, like, oh, it's going, our old one, it was a 66, and this new one, it turned out to be a 59 or something, right? Like,
yeah.
um,
I think that's because we do have to socialize. We start giving the county boards, everybody's getting 40 when everybody's getting 5. Yeah.
So if we do adopt it, how do we notify builders that we have adopted
Exactly.
it?
Yeah, that's one of my questions. How are we going to socialize with the board and with the developers? So,
why don't we just pilot it right now? It's, and just kind of still use the old one and just kind of run them both and just kind of, we're ready to move forward and release it and then retire the old one. Do that, but we should run parallel.
Can I ask a question? We're building our own standard.
Yeah.
Does the county have to approve the use of it?
No. No, they might want to. But yeah, no, the county has standards that get to achieve the goals.
Again, a lot of this is communications of, we're being consistent on every project we look at, and we're looking at the same things, and we're asking the same. And we're telling the county boards and the planning commission.
The standard, is it the county standard that builders use to like officially be approved? Or do
Yeah.
they have to bypass, like they have to bypass the standard?
Oh, I don't mean anything to
Yeah.
Again,
Why we did it.
communication, it's getting, we're constantly beating.
Yes.
Someday, maybe somebody will listen to us. and-
Virginia. Standards are Arlington County might want to. They can't. You have to use incentives, which is where the Greenville County's green building incentive. Not every developer uses it. And so if they don't, then well, whether they do or they don't, we'll give it our input on where this project fits in the spectrum.
And that can change if the state government authorizes local government to do so, but we need the state government to authorize. the local government.
Yeah.
So let's take a moment while we have forum approve the summary of the minutes. Anybody have any comments, questions for me?
No. Look fine.
It's fine. Anybody? Good with them? Can I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Joe. Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I do want to mention, and I know this is gonna be. John circulated the master. It doesn't do the focus on it. Like, so I think our feedback is exactly that, which is back and say we want changes and all of that. I'm so grateful that you are rep to that. But I do want to mention you also very involved in the climate change resolution. Elizabeth testified on behalf of C2E2. She did a great job. It's all the whole 10-hour 10-hour and 46-minute session is online, but climate stuff starts about Doug and I and Elizabeth, the first people there. We were not the last people there.
There's the minute mark where you got.
Probably about an hour.
Elizabeth is the first
It's
speaker.
It was about an hour after the meeting started. Yeah.
Yeah, the meeting started at 9:30. Don't know if the testified. Doug was there. So it was good and very well. And the board was very excited to be there. So, and then Joan helped organize the climate rally afterwards, and Rob came to and convention with there. And that was really fun. You know, people were saying, made signs, they were as instructed, and, you know, the leaders were like, you know, when do we want it now? You know, it was very 1960s for those of us who are so I did want to talk about that and sharing that experience. Anybody have any questions about that? It is very exciting, but our message, as someone over there, you Doug said, was you need more act. We need, this is great, but we need the plan. We need to. So I don't know, that might be, well, we have 5 more minutes. Talk about transportation, or to talk about the energy. Doug, I know.
I don't have much to report from Energy Committee. We got a report from Jen Fioretti. And she talked about a number of the things that she's doing, including work with gas powered motors and the climate action plan. And detailed some of the difficulties, why it's going to cost $500,000 to come up with a contractor to work on the climate action plan. So that's going to be a huge endeavor. Her office seems pretty darn busy with only 2 people in it. All the projects have been assigned to them. And I advocated at the EC meeting for more county resources being devoted to fighting climate change and adapting to climate change. I thought that air team was like 7 or 8 people, but I learned tonight it's only 5. Hoping to get another one.
What's wrong, John?
So,
I need more people. Be more people. No problem.
I do.
Thank you. That's the EC report.
I do want to mention that Alex is taking up the regen project from Joan as Joan begins to. Yeah, I don't know how to do that. So maybe accent's very complicated. I know Jason is. And I want to thank Lisa and Deanne for joining me on the solid waste committee. Our other committee besides the energy committee, we met last week and talked about a lot of stuff that goes into recycling and everything. But I think the most interesting thing was that they do quarterly waste audits, and that there's still, despite all the composting work that's been done, both for single family and multi-family residents, way too much food waste in our trash. I know we're bringing on APS food waste as well, but I don't know that this trash on too much food waste, and that they said only about 60% of our recyclables are actually being recycled. So lots of conversation will be forthcoming. You know, they're doing a lot of education, sitting out on the actually running ads. But so a lot of work to be done to get that rate up.
And did you say 60%?
Yeah, 60.
Actually better
I
than.
would say
Oh,
15,
so-
6. That's really bad.
Oh,
I'm like 60, that's good. I thought you're saying 60 what actually goes in gets recycled, right? Not.
I'm saying 60% of things that, so 60% of recyclables are getting recycled.
Right.
Some of them are going into regular trash.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happens after they go.
Worse.
Yeah.
To me, that's way better than I thought.
If you look at the trash and you look at what's in the blue container, what's in the black container,
You know, the county's very deliberate. The guidance does not say, look at the numbers on the plastics. So they're accepting lots of plastic that they know is gonna have to go in the trash. So,
Yeah, well, the thing is they only measure what goes to the, recycling center, separate stuff.
I don't know if
There, nobody knows where the.
I don't know if you have I don't know if it's a bad policy to have this separation done by people who know what they're looking at. That's probably good. So I'm not, but with that percentage, a lot of it's by definition gonna have to go to
Well.
trash.
Yeah.
I see.
And then sent overseas. And
mention that 90% of newspapers and cardboard are an exception. People get that. So newspapers and cardboard, that number's at 90%. Everything else not to mention.
Well, I think a lot of people are discouraged on the plastics.
Yeah, it is.
Most, getting the sense they don't get recycled anyway. Wherever you put
Covered it all, just a big emphasis on communications, education, accessibility, especially around the food scraps program, adding all those bits around Arlington, which makes promising.
Yes. Again, the real thing is reduction in waste, not diversion.
We know it. Big Valley that there, for people who live in multifamily, a lot of multifamily landlords will not allow containers. If you're on the 30th floor, you're in a backyard, or you don't have individual pickup. You just put your trash in the trash chute. So the county has put these big gully all around all these multifamilies on public lands and apparently the use is really shockingly good. So a lot of multifamily residents do take their food scraps. And it's all automated. The county can check remotely when they're starting to get full, when they need to pick them up. And so can the residents. You don't want a resident coming down from the 30th floor, trucking their stuff to this one and then finding out that one is full. So they sign up, they have the app, and they can tell ahead of time, and they can find one in the area. And the program's been really successful. So in the budget, we'll see 10 more Big Belly.
That's great.
So it is kind of interesting. South Lake Race would like to do it, but yeah, the climate change resolution is the big news on Saturday. All the county board members.
Yeah, and the climate or the master transportation plan update is the first issue. Is this really should be the this should be the climate action plan for transportation, which is of course about 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions. So is that in that vision there?
Very pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only mention of climate is under sustainability and it talks about climate resilience. So, it's like way off the mark as far as I'm concerned, but again, a lot of those goals underneath make the most sense, maybe a little bit of tweaking. But, the other thing is it's not really people centric. I mean, the first noun there is the transportation network enables, as opposed to people will be able to. Again, you shift the focus of how people get around, not what. I mean, yeah, it means your transportation network has to be developed, but I think it's just a different. And when we had proposed, they talk about it as a mobility plan, and they sounded it out from a few people who thought, well, mobility had something with things as disabled people being able to move around and stuff. Okay, I get it. That's fine, but we still want to get that sense. It did stop Alexandria from doing it, but.
So I think everyone. Check it out. To be tomorrow. And.
Thank you for bringing chocolate.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And Vinny.
Thank you.